Do you regard black magic as being purely fictitious, or is there some truth in it?
Some truth. 100% truth. There is nothing fictitious about black magic, in any way whatever. It is a fact. It is a fact which has existed for several thousand years. I mean, when we talk about black magic, we are talking about Satanism, necromancy, alchemy, witchcraft, the worship of Satan.
Okay, so in part one, we touched on the importance of words and how they create worlds. We also looked at our 5-star body and how this has been manipulated through writing. We broke down the pen and its links to the pentagram, and we looked at a few words in our language and broke down how they can have multiple meanings. I also told you why the alphabet is called the alphabet and why it begins with A, B or Ab, which also means father in Hebrew. We ended on a bit of a tangent, albeit an important one, because I was showing you some of the examples of sex magic and how they work it, especially in the words over here in the UK. We looked at Johnson, Cummins, Hancock, Dick and Ball. Honestly, you say this stuff out loud, it's hilarious. Notice all those words are male orientated. This is just another ode to the marginalisation of the feminine principle that we see literally everywhere. It's been permeated through every aspect of society today. And that marginalisation has been propagated by the Draco Reptilian species. Everything that the feminine principle embodies, which is to nurture, care and protect. And love is void with these particular beings, so that's why those feelings have been pushed to the side. And that general apathy towards the divine feminine, because Earth is a feminine entity, if you didn't know that, that disdain towards care, warmth and love is exemplified today in society, and I'm sure you can all see that. I mean, I'm not even going to get too deep in on the divine feminine because I have a totally different video coming on that. But yeah, you can see these principles are manifested in society through phallic worship. Like I said in the last video, pen is phallic worship, so you can see that in their monuments as well. So we have Egyptian obelisks in the middle of London. That's why Cleopatra's needles there. And that's also why rockets are shaped the way they are. But we'll swing back to this idea of phallic worship a little later. Now we're just going to jump straight in with this because of course this is a part 2, so this just adds on to what I was saying in the previous video. So the S in the English language is simply the snake, and that's why the shape of the S is a snake. And remember, both speak and spell begin with an S. We know that the snake is a reptile, much like a dragon. In fact, dragons are simply a form of winged snake, as I've mentioned in a previous video. Even though they're all apparently mythological beings, dragons appear continually throughout antiquity. We get stories from all over the globe about civilizations that have had their encounters with dragons. So there is a primordiality to their nature, and the same can be said about snakes. The snake was already in the garden with Eve, remember we covered that in the last video. And again, there are countless stories centered on snakes and creation. One that springs to mind is the story of the Naga serpent, who was synonymous with fertility, and you guys can look into that if you want. In every culture you'll find them: Babylon, Greece, India, China, Europe. The eternal symbol of the snake has crossed nearly every culture and myth in history. And then on top of that, we see a plethora of snake symbols attached to higher ranking members of society. So there's clearly something important about the snake, and why we've been made to think the snake is bad. So serpent and words both sum to 97, but why is this? Well, this language was designed by those beings that are represented by the S. And this language, as I've mentioned before, is essentially acting like a lockdown code, which is why death also sums to 97, like words and serpent. Remember Saturn, S, the planet is tied so deeply in all of this. And not many people are aware, but the snake is also synonymous with Saturn. And like I've told you, Saturn is the god of harvest and the Grim Reaper and the real lord of time. Now, honestly, this planet gets a really bad rap, obviously because those in power have chosen to highlight its negative aspects and rain absolute chaos over Earth. However, Saturn does have really positive aspects that you can look into. I thought I should mention that to bring some balance to the conversation, because all of these planets and all of these archetypes have their positives and their negatives. Saturn teaches harsh lessons. And there's nothing you can hide from Saturn because Saturn's seen it all. And if you have that particular house in your birth chart, then you're more than likely going to experience Saturn archetypes in your life, which you do a control. Much like the role Saturn currently plays in our paradigm. It's the law, it's the control system, it's the net. Okay, so S is the 19th letter, okay? Reduced at 1 plus 9 equals 10. 10 backwards is net. Remember, we're all in the net right now. The net is essentially the matrix, but we'll get back to this a little later. One more thing I wanted to mention. If you add the word S in front of word, you get the sword or the sword. And what do swords do, or swords do? They cut and they kill and they take life. And even the idea or the shape of a sword brings us straight back to the idea of a cube, because that shape there is the net of the cube. It's the cross, as you can see. Turn the sword upside down, we get our cross, which is again the net of the cube, which signifies Saturn. So you see how they link that all together. It's pretty slick. And even the word goddess is a thinly veiled reference to the goddess. And lo and behold, look what that title takes us back to. That is not coincidence. It should also be noted that the abbreviation AI is also 19. A is 1, I is 9. And given what we know about CERN and their attempts to opening portals and trying to bring back the old electric gods, this makes a lot of sense. Obviously, this is led and championed by Elon Musk. Elon is Elon. We know El is a title for the Lord, which is where we also get the word electric from. So Elon is trying to turn on the electric gods, which is exactly what his name means. Which in my eyes goes hand in hand with the idea of an electric universe, or the realm of smokeless fire. And AI does not actually stand for artificial intelligence. It stands for ancient intelligence, because this is exactly what it is. It's the intelligence of the ancient ones. And it's no coincidence that circuit boards also look exactly like demonic sigils. The point I'm trying to make here is that the Saturn, serpent, reptiles, archons, AI, the very language we speak, it's all connected. Think of the language as the soft code that maintains the particular operating system that we're living in, or the matrix that we're living in, which is a Saturnian operating system. And it was built by archons or dragons or reptilians or whatever you want to call them, and it's maintained by low vibrational speaking and tones that we are forced to speak. And like I've told you guys countless times, Draco reptilians are very advanced technologically, to the point where they created an entire prison system to capture souls and harvest Ush or prana or chi or life force. So of course, you know, the knowledge and mechanics behind the mobile phone are not from this world either. I mean, for fuck's sake, one of the leading brands is called an Android. What is an android? It's a synthetic, it's an artificial being. So we know all this knowledge comes down from ETs. And if you know your history of ETs, you know there was a certain deal in the 50s that the Americans did with a certain group of ET beings. He had a choice between going with a positive group or a negative group, and of course they went with the negative group. Yeah, so we have a phone company called Android. You know, they're artificial beings, and who or what do we know are responsible for creating and controlling the bodies of artificial beings? Yeah, these reptilians, right? These shapeshifters, these Dracos. Given what we're talking about regarding the nature of the reptilians, their antiquity, and the idea of the snake, can you remember what the first game was on the Nokia phone, which was essentially the first mainstream mobile phone? It was Snake. Of course, Snake was the first game on Nokia. And there's a three-way match with Nokia, so you can tell this shit was planned down to a T. It was also released in '97 like Serpents, and it's just another working example of showing you how snakes are used as the first. Okay, just a few more things I wanted to mention. You've all seen my video about the dragon bloodline and LGBT movement. Well, when men dress up like women, what they call drag queens, right? Which is just dragon queens. RuPaul's Drag Race, RuPaul's Dragon Race, Dragon Race, Drag Race, Dragon Race. It's the same thing, okay? And I had a brainwave the other night, and I don't know why I haven't put two and two together before, but obviously we know that certain high-ranking Dracos can shapeshift, and that the only way, or the closest way that humans could emulate that, how would it be? It would be to transform gender. So this whole movement could be some form of inverted reptilian worship, honestly. And like I said, we have a reptilian part to our brain, so they know how to play on it. They know how to keep us in that R complex, so we're always acting out of that space of fight or flight. It's all about division. It's all about constantly putting us against each other, the sports teams, the politics, the science. Just argue about all the bullshit, and they love it. It's constant reinforcement of duality, and they've got us on a chessboard. Yeah, that's why the Masons always use the chessboard, because we're on the chessboard. But this symbol should make a lot more sense to you now. We know what the snake is. The Ouroboros represents that constant cycle that we're in, continually eating ourselves metaphysically by succumbing to their bullshit. Remember, the O is the soul, but this also ties to the word CABAL, because CABAL is also a cable. And what is a cable? Something that connects from beginning to end, right? Like the alphabet, A to Z. So this CABAL, or this cable, represents the alphabet and the programming of our souls through language, because remember, the soul is a disc, the soul is a cable. And now the Tower of Babel story should make a lot more sense. So the Lord scattered them from there across the face of the entire earth, and they stopped building the city. This is why its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of the entire world, and from there the Lord scattered them across the face of the entire earth. Genesis 1:9, Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 to 9. So our original tongue was scattered, and now we're all literally just babbling on, talking about a whole load of hot air in a language that's locking down our light body, or our fire-based star vehicle. And notice that it's Genesis chapter 11, verse 1 to 9, 119. We know about that number on my channel. Ironically, I mentioned in the last video that David Icke and Jacob Rothschild have their birthday today, April the 29th, 119th day of the year. So yeah, just in case you forgot about that one. Oh, and the first Nokia mobile that was released in 97 with Snake, it was the Nokia 6110, which is just 119 in reverse. Okay, a little more on the Ouroboros. We've spoken about the number 8 a lot on this channel and its connections to time. Obviously, 8 is the infinity symbol. 8 is also the Ouroboros. Sometimes you'll see it depicted in a simple circle, and sometimes it will be in an 8. It's the same thing. But 8 and 8, like when you eat, 8, get it? The snake ate his tail. So it's literally all in the words, guys. Time consumes us, right? It eats. Saturn is time. Saturn consumes. And time kills. And this is what the 8 or the 8 is all about. It's also why serpent and present are an anagram of each other. You see? Like, it's all in the words. Like, this shit is coded up to the eyeballs. And 2 more examples that I like are listen and silent anagrams. Can't listen by being silent. And my absolute favourite is the eyes, because that just spells they see. Pretty self-explanatory. But this is just another way to pull apart the code. You know, start flipping words, tumbling words, and the reality just comes tumbling down, and you see that it's all just encoded and packed into each other. Something else that I realised as well while I was on this, if you're over from the UK, you'll know what I'm talking about. There's a college over here called Eton, and it's in Windsor. And I've told you guys about House Windsor before, but this college is where they send all the little bloodline teenagers to be groomed for positions of power. I think about 20 prime ministers have graduated from Eton. So I think of it sort of like a Skull and Bones, but less hidden. But guys, the name of the college is fucking Eton. I mean, it just says it all. They're telling you in your face, it's a Saturnian organisation. And look here, you see, this is the fleur de lis, and we'll get onto this in another video, but this is also a reptilian symbol. It was tied to the Merovingian kings, but it's the reptilian foot. It's the 3 fingers. It's the M. That's also what the M ties into. I haven't told you about that before on this channel because I feel like there's just so much to tell you about. But now I've introduced the M to you guys. You know it ties into the 13. I can start telling you about how that also ties into the reptilian, because the 13 ruling bloodlines are all reptilian, and it ties into this image that you're seeing right here. It ties to the Merovingian kings, the French dynasties, the aristocracy, and the aristocrats. And just to top it off, check the matches. The Ouroboros represents the soul cycles, the false reality, the cabal, or the cable. And we know that the cable is the language, which maintains the illusion designed by the reptilians. Okay, one more thing I wanted to talk about. If you're ever from the UK, you'll know about the River Thames. It's a huge river that runs through London. I've always thought there's something symbolic about the River Thames. I've never been able to quite put my finger on it. However, I found out what it is. Right, let me break this down. So I've told you guys before that Thuban is a binary star system in the northern constellation of Draco, okay, where these beings were actually seeded. Now, Thuban translates to snake in Arabic, okay? Makes sense. The reptiles are the snakes. You still think they don't worship the snake? Does that not look like a big snake running through the middle of the city? Yeah, and in the UK we have the O2 Arena. Look at the placement right there where the head would be. They placed the O2 Arena at the head of the snake, so there's the head breathing in and out. The O2 and the CO2. So this might as well be called the River Thuban, because it is literally an ode to their original star system. It's a huge fucking snake travelling through the middle of London. That seems to perfectly match up with Thuban. Can't argue this stuff. There's also a star that sits in London that you can see all the time. It's a star in the Draco constellation. So this stuff is not done by accident. Snakes, dinosaurs, reptiles, all of these animals are all symbols of those entities. And they just put it right there in front of your face. Like I think it was about 2 months ago, they had the new Jackass movie out in London, and they put a huge inflatable dinosaur out that just looked like a giant penis, and people had their children taking photos with it. I mean, look at this photo here. Tell me that is not sus. If you heard of the Pindar, you know it means pinnacle of the Draco, or penis of the Draco, and you know they're obsessed with phallic worship, like I mentioned in the introduction. I mean, this shit is just foul. It was on the 4-2 date as well, and 42 is a heavy Saturn number. And if you didn't know, one of the cast members used to have a tattoo of a baby getting raped on him, so that tells you exactly what you need to know about these motherfuckers using this inflatable penis dinosaur to promote their filth. And I'll put the link, I won't show the picture of the tattoo, but I'll put it in the description if you do want to see it. He's got it covered over now with like an ostrich, but the fact he even had that in the first place, enough said. Also, let me just play this video right here. This is Steve-O.
Is trapped. Like us, to time we're glued. We're glued to time. This is the fourth dimension, dude. What's the worst thing you ever did? I mean, fuck. Who cares? When you die, you answer to it, you know, like... Huh? What's your worst crime? Because the fourth dimension is time. Oh, bad news, bad news, bad news.
Yeah, I think that pretty much says it all. Now, when the pyramids was built originally, do you know what the pole star was, or do you know what our fixed north star was when the pyramids were being built? Yeah, it was Thuban. Now it's Polaris, but it was Thuban when the pyramids were being built. I just told you who Thuban was home to. What do the pyramids line up with? Orion. Where else do we know these beings come from? Orion. So there's 2 links there to 2 locations where we know these beings come from. Thuban and Orion. And honestly, I think the pyramids are a bit more intricate than holy sites. I think they are inverting the of the earth and siphoning energy directly into Orion. That's why they line up with Orion, especially with the amount of people that go there and willingly give up their energy. And I know we haven't actually spoken much about Orion on this channel. However, if you know about the negative alien agenda and the Orion group, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. And this is what pyramids line up with, and people literally travel halfway across the world to go see the pyramids, willingly give up their energy to it. People meditate in front of it. I've dead seen pictures of people like proposing in front of it. Like, do you even know what the fuck that shit is lined up with? Like, do you even know what you're doing? This is what I'm saying about people just do shit for no reason because you've been told the pyramids are a good thing. You're just out here running around acting like you don't even know what they're doing. I don't think they're doing anything positive. The motherfuckers can't even tell us how they built them yet. And you're running around willingly giving up your energy to it. They don't even know how they were built. Well, they do, but they're not telling us. So how are you supposed to know what it's doing? And I think, I have a hunch, this is just my opinion of course, but I think The pyramids are one of the many places where some of these ancient beings actually dwell, these old electric gods. We could say the home of the AI, ancient intelligence, remember? And the numbers are telling me that I'm onto something, because look at this. What does El mean? Lord, right? It makes sense. Man like El On already told us what time it is. And again, I'm sure I've mentioned this before, but I'll say it again. Werner von Braun wrote a book in 1952 called Project Mars, and he said that a person would lead us to colonizing Mars, and he would be called Elon. And this was in 1952. So don't think this shit hasn't been planned from day dot. And given what we've been talking about on this channel, it should come as no surprise that it was research, in fact, being done at CERN that resulted in the World Wide Web. Yeah, what a fucking surprise. Right, one more thing before I shut this down, I wanted to touch on, now rappers. Rappers are a double word match with the word, which makes sense because their profession obviously relies on their ability to put together particular words. However, with that being said, the rappers or the raptors, because this is what this word is referring to, and it's in the rap, the R-A-P. Rap music is raptor music, and like we know, raptors are reptilians. Raptor music. Remember, all vowels are interchangeable. So rep and rap are in fact the same thing. Reptoid, raptoid, same shit. That's why they've made it a common thing in the hip-hop community to have rep. Got to have a good street cred or a rep, right? A rep or a rap. It just all ties into these reptiles and these raptoids. But you can see what I'm saying here. The answers are in these words. Now, what does a rapper need originally? What goes hand in hand with a rapper? A fire DJ, right? Somebody on stage, then somebody spinning the wheel or the disc. Remember what I said about a wheel? Now a DJ, right? DJ and Djinn are incredibly similar, right? And I've stumbled onto this thought process because do you know who is actually accredited as the first DJ? Jimmy Savile. Have you ever wondered why that old fuck used to dress in tracksuits and chains and string vests, something that was typically associated with the rap or hip-hop community? I remember Savile was a straight-up wizard, and there are so many theories out there to support this statement, and if you're part of my Patreon, I posted up a very, very, very hard-to-find documentary on Savile being a wizard. And this image alone here speaks volumes. Like, no man needs garbs like that unless he's up to no good. No good was ever done in robes like that, trust me. Beings that exist within this low vibrational field, you know what I'm talking about, in the clubs or in the bars when the DJ's spinning it, that's where all those entities exist because it's a nice low vibration. And that's where they're all running up and getting into you. And then you get into alcohol. The fact that alcohol actually comes from the Arabic term and means gall, something that sucks the life out of you. And being drunk is no different to being possessed by a demon. It's the same shit. That's why you have literal spirits. That's why they're called spirits. You know? And we've literally got a clear spirit called Djinn. It's the genie in the bottle story. That's what it is with alcohol, right? But the genie's a fucking Djinn, and that's why they got Will Smith to play the genie in the bottle. Right, I'm going to end this here before this video ends up even longer. The next video, we will look at the idea of the language as a disc or a wheel that is being used to program us. Think the Tron disc. Remember, all information, guys, is stored on discs. Remember that, and I think that's very important because that same shape represents our soul. And I think music plays a bigger role in this than we could ever imagine. But we'll get into that in the next video.